All right, so get this today. We're going deep on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but from a completely different angle,
Oh, yeah.
the metaphysical.
Interesting.
We're going to move past, all the usual headlines and analysis, and we're going to explore some insights from 4 separate hypnotic regression sessions.
Okay.
It's like we're going to try to uncover this hidden layer to the whole conflict.
Yeah, think of it as a way to, explore the energetic undercurrents of the whole situation.
Exactly. And look, I know hypnotic regression might sound a little out there to some people.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's not familiar, it's basically a technique used to access memories and experiences that are kind of tucked away in the subconscious mind. It's like
Right.
this guided journey inward. And it can reveal some pretty fascinating perspectives.
It can challenge how we usually think about things.
Okay, so let's unpack this.
What?
When they were asked about the very start of the war, a really striking pattern emerged across all 4 sessions. Each participant independently described this swirling vortex of energy.
That's really interesting.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, you see in a lot of spiritual traditions, vortexes actually symbolize these points of intense energy transformation,
Okay.
often associated with upheaval and change. It's almost as if the subconscious mind is mirroring the massive shift that this conflict represents.
Yeah,
Not just politically, but on this deeper energetic level.
that's so interesting. It's like their subconscious is picking up on something bigger, something beyond just the physical events.
Right.
One person even described it as this funnel that actually changed the quality of time itself.
Wow.
Another participant saw it as with these shadowy figures kind of lurking around, observing the whole thing.
Yeah, it's almost like these images are trying to tell us that this war is like this catalyst, a turning point that's going to have lasting consequences on a global scale.
Wow. Okay. So things took a really interesting turn when they were asked about the forces behind the conflict. But on this metaphysical level,
Right.
consistently the sessions pointed to influences beyond individual human control.
It's like there might be layers of influence at play that we're not consciously aware of.
It's kind of unsettling, isn't it?
It is.
To think that things might not be as straightforward as they seem.
Yeah.
One participant described this pervasive dark energy influencing government decisions, almost like a puppet master.
That makes you think about the nature of free will, doesn't it?
It does.
How much of what's happening on the world stage is truly driven by individual choice versus these larger forces at play.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder. And then another participant saw this powerful entity, almost like this thought broadcaster,
Interesting.
transmitting ideas and motivations directly into the minds of leaders.
Wow.
It's almost like a scene out of a science fiction movie.
It's a very powerful image.
And then there's the participant who described this council of non-Slavic figures, all wearing these top hats
Top hat.
as the ones actually controlling the situation from behind the scenes. It's not every day you hear about top hats influencing global conflicts.
Definitely not.
Right. And it gets even more intriguing. The final participant envisioned this global predictor, a group of non-human entities who are orchestrating these events to further their own hidden agenda.
It makes you question who or what is truly at the helm of these global events.
Now, this next part is where things get really interesting and maybe a little unsettling. 3 out of the 4 participants describe some form of etheric implants being used in relation to the conflict.
Now, for those who might not be familiar with this concept,
Yeah.
in some spiritual traditions, etheric implants are thought of as these non-physical attachments that can influence our thoughts and actions,
Yeah.
almost like energetic parasites.
So one participant saw these implants as something similar to vaccinations.
Okay.
But instead of protecting us, they were designed to lower people's vibrations and make them more susceptible to negativity and propaganda.
That's a chilling thought.
It is.
It makes you think twice about what you're being told and by whom.
Right. And another participant described it as a network of flash drives, like data storage devices, raining down from above, controlling and manipulating people through information and even energy manipulation.
It's a disturbing thought,
Yeah.
but it aligns with growing concerns about information warfare and the weaponization of technology in the modern age.
It really makes you think twice about what you're being told and by whom.
It does. And this participant went even further. They described how these flash drives also function as energy collectors,
What?
drawing power from our negative emotions. It's like they're feeding off the chaos and conflict, using our fear and anger to fuel their agenda.
That's incredibly unsettling.
It is.
It really highlights how important it is to be aware of our own emotional states and how they can be manipulated,
Absolutely.
especially in times of conflict.
Okay, now this next recurring theme might sound a little alarming at first, but stick with me. The participants kept describing this idea of death or a death program being initiated.
Now, before you panic, it's important to remember that in many spiritual traditions, death is not seen as an end,
Right.
but as a transformation, a transition to a new state of being. You're right, it's important to clarify that. And the participants were very clear that this death wasn't about literal physical death.
Okay.
They described it as the death of old systems, outdated ways of thinking, and rigid structures that no longer serve humanity. It's almost like they're sensing a massive shift in consciousness, a breakdown of the old paradigms that have governed humanity for centuries.
And if we think about it, this concept of a death program actually aligns with what we were discussing earlier about those hidden forces and potential manipulations.
Yeah.
Could it be that this program is being implemented by those same forces, perhaps as a way to break down the existing order and impose their own agenda?
It really does. And remember that participant who saw the council in top hats?
Yeah.
They specifically mentioned that this death program was part of their plan, a way to dismantle the old systems and rebuild society in a way that serves their interests.
That's a very thought-provoking connection.
Isn't it?
It really highlights the potential for a hidden agenda behind this concept of a death program, even if it's presented as a necessary or even positive transformation.
Right.
And it reinforces the need for critical thinking and discernment in the face of such claims.
Absolutely. We need to be able to question what we're being told, to look beyond the surface and consider the potential motives behind the information we're receiving.
Precisely.
Yeah.
We can't just blindly accept everything at face value.
Right.
We need to be active participants in shaping our reality, both individually and collectively.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and explore what these participants saw when they were asked to glimpse into the future.
Okay.
Specifically, they were asked to focus on December 31st, 2022, and share any insights they received about the state of the world at that time. Keep in mind, this is just one possible future glimpse through the lens of their subconscious minds.
It's important to remember that the future isn't fixed. It's a fluid, ever-changing landscape influenced by countless factors, including our collective choices and actions.
Right. So one participant envisioned a sense of exhaustion, but also a wave of rebuilding efforts, particularly in the Donbass region, which had been heavily impacted by the conflict.
That's an interesting observation.
Yeah.
It suggests that even amidst the devastation, there's a resilient spirit, a drive to rebuild and create something new from the ashes of destruction.
Another participant saw Russia and Ukraine, while still deeply wounded by the conflict, starting to pull together to face a common enemy described as a killing machine.
This concept of a common enemy is intriguing.
It is.
It suggests that perhaps the true source of conflict lies beyond the immediate parties involved, and that this shared threat could potentially lead to unexpected alliances and a shift in the geopolitical landscape.
It really makes you think about the complexities of war and the potential for seemingly opposing forces to find common ground in the face of a greater threat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then there's the participant who had a vision of a global reckoning taking place.
Oh, wow.
They saw an initial wave of shock and disbelief as the truth about the conflict and those responsible for instigating it was exposed.
It's almost like the veil was lifted and the world finally saw the true nature of what had transpired.
This idea of a global reckoning resonates with the concept of karma. It suggests that actions have consequences and that ultimately justice in whatever form it takes will prevail.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's a force for balance and accountability at work. And this participant also saw a shift in consciousness occurring as a result of this global reckoning. People were waking up, becoming more aware of the manipulations that had been taking place, and realizing that they had the power to choose a different path.
That's a hopeful message.
Yeah.
It suggests that even amidst the chaos and destruction, there's potential for growth and transformation.
Right.
That we as individuals and as a collective can learn from these experiences and create a more just and equitable world.
Okay, so for the final part of each hypnotic regression session, the participants were asked to envision something called a portal of peace.
Interesting.
They were guided to imagine that the collective subconscious of all those who desire peace was creating this portal, this energetic gateway to a more harmonious reality.
This exercise is all about tapping into the power of collective intention.
Yeah.
The idea that our thoughts and emotions can create tangible change in the world.
It's a reminder that we're not powerless, that we all have a role to play in shaping the future.
Exactly.
So one participant envisioned this portal as a radiant golden energy, almost like a wave of light, spreading across the globe, touching every corner of the planet. It was a symbol of hope, of healing, and of the interconnectedness of all beings.
It's a beautiful image.
It
It
is.
speaks to our innate human longing for connection, for harmony, and for peace. And then another participant saw the portal as this cradle of light,
Oh, wow.
woven from the energies of countless individuals, all focus on the same intention, the same desire for peace.
And a third participant envisioned the portal as this massive purifying dance circle, connecting people from all walks of life, all cultures, all backgrounds, in a shared celebration of unity and peace.
These visualizations are incredibly powerful.
They are.
They highlight the potential that exists within each of us to contribute to a more peaceful world.
Yeah.
And they remind us that even in the darkest of times, hope can be a potent force for change.
You know, it's really striking how these participants, even when confronted with these unsettling realities about hidden influences and manipulation, were still able to tap into this deep well of hope and envision a more positive future.
It speaks to the resilience of the human spirit, our inherent capacity for love, compassion, and the unwavering belief in the possibility of a better world.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've explored the Russia-Ukraine conflict through a very unique lens,
We have.
uncovering some thought-provoking and even unsettling insights.
Absolutely. But I think the most important takeaway here is that regardless of what's happening on the surface level, whether it's geopolitical conflicts or societal upheavals, there's always this deeper energetic and spiritual dimension at play.
Right. And we as individuals aren't just passive observers.
No.
We have the power to influence these energetic currents through our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions.
Precisely. And that brings us to a crucial question for you to ponder. If the subconscious mind, as revealed through these hypnotic regression sessions, is capable of influencing reality,
Right.
what role do your individual thoughts, beliefs, and actions play in shaping the world around us?
It's a powerful question to sit with. What impact are you having on the world around you? And what kind of future do you want to be a part of creating?
We'll delve deeper into these questions and explore some potential answers when we return. Stay tuned. So before we went to that portal of peace, we were discussing some pretty mind-bending concepts like these hidden influences and etheric implants.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, for sure.
Yeah.
But I find it really fascinating to kind of explore this conflict from this metaphysical perspective, like trying to see what might be happening beneath the surface.
And one of the themes that really stood out to me was this whole idea of forces beyond individual human control shaping events, you know, on the world stage.
Yeah.
It really makes you question the narrative that we're often given about these conflicts and,
Yeah.
who or what might actually be driving them.
Yeah, that definitely came up repeatedly in these sessions. It's like there's this whole other layer of reality operating behind the scenes,
Right.
influencing, the decisions of world leaders and shaping the course of events.
One participant even described it as this program running in the background, almost like computer code dictating thoughts and decisions.
Oh, wow.
Another one talked about these entities, these beings from other realms,
Yeah.
interfering in human affairs.
A bit unsettling to think about.
It is,
Yeah.
but it also opens up some really interesting questions.
It does. And remember that participant who described a council of non-Slavic figures in top hats?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They felt like these figures were manipulating the situation for their own gain, like pulling the strings from behind the scenes.
That's a really powerful image.
It is.
It speaks to the idea of secret societies, of power structures operating in the shadows,
Right.
influencing events for their own purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Makes you wonder, who's really in control and what their motives might be.
Okay, so let's dive back into some specific details from the sessions. One participant, when asked about the responsibility for the war on this metaphysical level, had this really vivid visual. They saw a flash drive being inserted, like someone was plugging in a piece of technology.
It's a fascinating analogy.
Yeah.
It brings up this idea of programming, of external forces manipulating our thoughts and behaviors,
Right.
almost like installing software into our minds.
And it wasn't just about technology in the traditional sense. They described it as this program,
Yeah.
set of instructions that was impacting humanity's collective consciousness. There's this underlying code influencing how we perceive the world, how we react to events, and even how we make decisions.
And this brings us back to that whole concept of etheric implants that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
These energetic attachments that can influence our thoughts, our emotions, and our behaviors,
Right.
often without our conscious awareness.
It's like we're being influenced on this subtle energetic level, and most people aren't even aware that it's happening.
Right. And another participant described a network of these flash drives raining down from the sky,
Oh, wow.
almost like a weaponized form of information control,
Hmm.
targeting the collective consciousness.
It's a chilling thought,
It is.
but it aligns with the growing concerns about information warfare in the digital age.
Right. We're constantly bombarded with information from all sides,
Yeah,
and it's becoming increasingly difficult to discern what's true and what's not.
absolutely. And this participant also talked about these flash drives functioning as energy collectors,
Yeah.
drawing power from our negative emotions.
Right. It's almost like they're feeding off the chaos and conflict,
It is.
using our fear, our anger, and our despair to fuel their agenda.
That's incredibly unsettling. It makes you wonder if that's why we see so much division and negativity in the world today.
It raises some important questions about how our emotions can be manipulated and used against us. It highlights the importance of cultivating emotional awareness,
Right.
learning to manage our reactions, especially in the face of these challenging situations.
Now, I know we mentioned this earlier, but several participants described these implants as being delivered through vaccinations. Now, I understand that this might sound like a conspiracy theory,
Yeah.
but it's important to remember that we're simply presenting the information that emerged from these sessions.
Exactly. We're not here to promote fear or endorse any particular viewpoint. Our goal is to just explore these ideas and encourage critical thinking.
Right.
And it's important to know that even within the context of these sessions, there were differing perspectives on the nature and purpose of these implants.
Exactly. Not all the participants saw them as inherently negative or malicious.
Right.
Some felt that they were being used for benevolent purposes, perhaps to accelerate human evolution or raise consciousness.
It's a reminder that there are often multiple perspectives and interpretations when it comes to these metaphysical concepts.
Yeah.
It's up to each individual to discern what resonates with them and form their own conclusions.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit, let's talk about that recurring theme of death that emerged. It's important to emphasize again that the participants weren't talking about literal physical death.
Right.
They were referring to the death of old systems, of outdated ways of thinking,
Yeah.
and of rigid structures that no longer serve humanity.
It's like they were sensing this massive shift in consciousness, a breakdown of the old paradigms that have governed humanity for centuries.
Right. And one participant even referred to it as a death program, like a deliberate process of dismantling the structures that are no longer aligned with our highest good.
And this concept of a death program ties back to what we were discussing earlier about those hidden influences and potential manipulation.
It does.
It makes you wonder if this program is being orchestrated by those same forces.
Right.
Perhaps as a way to break down the existing order and impose their own agenda.
It's a thought-provoking idea. Could it be that this death program, while potentially disruptive and unsettling, is actually a necessary stage in our collective evolution?
Yeah.
Maybe it's clearing the way for something new and better to emerge.
That's a hopeful perspective. It reminds us that even in the face of apparent destruction and chaos, there's always the potential for renewal and transformation.
Okay, so now let's get into some specific details about how these participants envision the future. When asked about the global consequences of the war at the end of 2022, one participant had a particularly striking vision. They saw both Russia and Ukraine losing territory, almost like pieces of them were being broken off.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
It suggests this idea of fragmentation of loss, and perhaps even the redrawing of boundaries. It could be interpreted as a physical loss of land, but it could also symbolize a deeper loss of identity, a sense of being fractured and incomplete.
And they also felt that both nations were losing something intangible, like their sense of identity or their connection to their past.
It makes you wonder about the long-term psychological and spiritual consequences of war.
Yeah.
How does conflict reshape our understanding of ourselves, our nations, and our place in the world? And how do we heal those wounds both individually and collectively?
That's a really important question. And as we discussed earlier, this participant also sensed this growing awareness in the world, a realization that the true enemies might not be the ones we've been led to believe. It's like people were starting to wake up to the possibility of a hidden agenda, of forces operating behind the scenes to orchestrate conflict and division.
Yes, this idea of hidden agendas, of puppeteers pulling strings from behind the scenes, was a recurring theme in these sessions.
Yeah.
It challenges us to question the narratives we're given,
Right.
to look beyond the surface and consider who benefits from conflict and division.
Another participant described a future where Russia and Ukraine were forced to unite, not out of friendship, but out of necessity. They were both wounded, exhausted, but fighting together against this common enemy described as a killing machine.
This vision suggests that perhaps shared adversity can sometimes lead to these unexpected alliances,
Right.
even between those who've been deeply divided.
It's like the old saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Exactly.
And it makes you think about the nature of that killing machine. Could it be a literal weapon? A technological threat? Or maybe even like a symbolic representation of the forces of destruction and chaos that are unleashed by war?
It's open to interpretation. But what's fascinating is that this vision suggests a potential shift in alliances,
Right.
a recognition that the true threat might lie elsewhere beyond the immediate conflict.
This participant also saw a shift in consciousness occurring, a growing awareness of the true nature of the conflict and the forces behind it. It's like humanity was starting to awaken to the manipulations that had been taking place.
That aligns with what we've been discussing about the power of awakening,
Right.
of recognizing the patterns of control and manipulation and choosing a different path.
And they felt that this awareness was leading to a sense of inner strength and resilience, a refusal to be controlled or manipulated any longer.
It's a hopeful message, isn't it?
Yeah.
That even in the face of these immense challenges, the human spirit can find ways to resist, to adapt, and to evolve.
Yeah.
And that this process of awakening can lead to greater empowerment and a deeper connection to our own inner truth.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we're not powerless,
No.
that we have the capacity to choose how we respond to the events unfolding around us,
Right.
and that we can create a more positive future even amidst the chaos and uncertainty.
And this brings us to a crucial question. If we accept that there are these hidden influences at play, these forces that seek to manipulate and control us, how do we resist?
That's a great question. And luckily, the hypnotic regression sessions offered some potential answers. They highlighted the importance of cultivating self-awareness, connecting with our higher selves, and recognizing the power of our own thoughts and beliefs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about reclaiming our power, remembering who we truly are, and choosing to align with the forces of light and love,
Right.
rather than succumbing to fear and manipulation.
Yeah.
And it's about recognizing our interconnectedness,
Right.
understanding that we're all part of this larger web of consciousness,
Right.
and that our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions have a ripple effect on the world around us.
Right. It's about understanding that we're not just victims of circumstance,
No.
but active participants in shaping our reality.
Exactly.
And that we have the power to create a more peaceful, just, and harmonious world, both individually and collectively.
And we'll explore these ideas further when we return, delving into the specific strategies and practices that can help us navigate these complex times
Okay.
and create a future that aligns with our highest aspirations.
So welcome back to our deep dive into the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And wow, exploring this from like the metaphysical side has been quite the journey.
It really has.
Yeah.
You know, it's been so fascinating to see how these sessions have kind of revealed not just anxieties about these hidden influences,
Right.
but also these glimpses of individual and collective empowerment.
Right. It's like even when they were faced with those unsettling themes of etheric implants and, death programs,
Right.
there was still this persistent thread of hope.
Yeah.
This feeling that we're not powerless in the face of these challenges.
Exactly. And that brings us back to that question we left you with.
Right.
If these hidden forces, these manipulations are real, how do we resist them? What can we actually do about it?
Well, one participant had what I thought was a really profound realization.
Yeah.
They said, we are the program.
Wow.
It was like a light bulb went off for them. They suddenly understood that we're not just victims of these like external forces,
Right.
but we're active participants in shaping reality.
That's a powerful shift in perspective.
It is.
It moves us from a place of feeling helpless
Yeah.
to a place of recognizing our own agency.
Right.
If we're part of the program, then we have the ability to rewrite it.
It's almost like instead of being like a character in someone else's story,
Right.
we become the authors of our own.
Exactly. And another participant emphasized the importance of staying connected to our higher selves, to our intuition and inner wisdom. They saw this as a key to resisting manipulation.
So it's about turning into that inner voice, that gut feeling, and learning to trust it. Because like they pointed out, if we're constantly bombarded with external information,
Right.
if we're disconnected from our own inner guidance system, it becomes so much easier to be swayed by those outside influences.
It's like cultivating that inner compass, that sense of discernment,
Right.
so we can navigate through all the noise and make choices that are aligned with our authentic selves,
Right.
not with someone else's agenda.
And they also stress the importance of self-awareness. Like really paying attention to our thoughts, emotions, and reactions. Especially in those moments when we feel triggered or reactive.
Right.
Because as they put it, if we're not aware of our own inner landscape, we're much more susceptible to those external influences.
It's like becoming a conscious observer of our own minds,
Right.
noticing the patterns and programs that are running in the background. And once we become aware of them,
Yeah.
then we can start to question them.
Right. It's like, hey, wait a minute. Why am I feeling this way? Is this really my thought or belief? Or is it something that's been implanted or projected onto me?
Makes
And
sense.
then we can start to make different choices. We can choose to operate from a different set of beliefs and values,
Right.
ones that are aligned with who we truly are and what we want to create in the world.
Absolutely.
So we've got self-awareness, connecting with our higher selves. What else came up in these sessions as a way to resist manipulation?
Well, another participant offered a piece of advice that at first glance might seem really simple, but I think it's incredibly profound.
Okay.
They simply said, remember yourself.
Remember yourself.
It's like a mantra, a reminder to tap into our core essence, our authentic selves, the part of us that exists beyond all the programming and conditioning.
So it's about stripping away all the layers, all the external influences, and remembering who we are at our core.
And when we remember ourselves, we connect to our inherent strength, our resilience, and our capacity for love and compassion. It's like we're activating our inner light, our inner compass. And that can guide us through those times of darkness and confusion.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, I remember in the last part of each session, the participants were asked to envision this portal of peace. Can we talk about what emerged from that exercise?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This was all about tapping into the power of collective intention.
Right.
The idea that our thoughts and emotions can create tangible change in the world.
It's like we're all connected on this deeper level, and when we focus our intentions on something, it creates this ripple effect, influencing the collective consciousness.
Exactly. And the visualizations that emerged from this exercise were really quite moving. One participant described this radiant golden energy spreading across the globe, touching every living being,
Wow.
bringing healing and harmony. Another saw a cradle of light woven from the energies of countless individuals, all focused on the same intention, the same desire for peace.
It's beautiful to think about, like, all these individual lights coming together to create this powerful force for good.
And a third participant envisioned this massive, purifying dance circle,
Wow.
connecting people from all walks of life, all cultures, all backgrounds, in a shared celebration of unity and peace.
Like, we're all part of this grand cosmic dance, and when we move together in harmony, we create something truly magical.
You know what struck me most about these visualizations was the sense of hope they conveyed.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even in the midst of conflict and darkness, there's always the potential for peace, for healing, and for transformation.
Yeah, it's like this beacon of light reminding us that we're not alone, that there are countless others out there who share that same desire for a better world.
And that we have the power collectively to create that world.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Russia-Ukraine conflict through the metaphysical lens, I'm left with this feeling of possibility.
You know, it's been quite a journey exploring these unconventional perspectives.
It has.
We've encountered these unsettling themes, but also discovered these powerful insights into the potential for individual and collective transformation.
Yeah, it's like the conflict viewed through this lens becomes a reflection of this larger battle between darkness and light, between fear and love, between control and freedom.
And ultimately, the choice of which side we align with rests within each and every one of us.
So we leave you with this invitation. Remember yourself, connect to your inner light, and join the collective dance of peace.
Together, we can create a future worthy of our highest aspirations.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it sparked some new perspectives and empowered you to see the world and your role in it with fresh eyes.